For more on this story, we can bring in Elisabeth Kendall, a senior research fellow at Oxford University. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, this isn't the first time the UN has attempted to bring about peace in Yemen. Back in September, talks collapsed over in Geneva after the Houthi delegation didn't show up. What's different this time around?
This time around, there is an increasing international impatience to bring about these peace talks and to make them a reality. Now, that is partly because the images that we've been seeing on our TVs and in our newspapers of the famine are now becoming a reality. People are dying, and something absolutely needs to happen to prevent about 14 million people in Yemen dying from starvation. And at the same time, there is a decrease in the willingness to listen to the Saudi narrative, I believe, in the wake of the Khashoggi affair. And so there has been a massive amount of international pressure that has been brought to bear to get these two main warring sides to the peace table. As your report mentioned, there have now been significant concessions on both sides. That's unusual. That's a very good sign. The Houthis have said that they will stop launching drones and missiles at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has agreed to remove some of the major sticking points that prevented the Houthis from attending the talks in September. They wanted their wounded to be evacuated to Oman. They wanted a guarantee of safe passage back to Yemen after the talks. Both of those points have reportedly been agreed. And the Saudi-led coalition has at least decreased its hostilities around the port city of Hodeidah. So things currently look pretty positive.
So you did mention that about the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, because we seem to have, in the aftermath of that, we had the US who decided to stop refueling Saudi aircraft. So did his murder place attention on Saudi's activities in the region?
I think the link is undeniable that suddenly Saudi Arabia came under the microscope and there was a lot less goodwill in the international community for listening to the Saudi narrative on events, including events in Yemen. And so you could say that the tragic murder of Jamal Khashoggi has a slight silver lining in that it may actually help resolve the situation in Yemen. And it's worth pointing out that a bipartisan bill was presented by 6 senators in the United States last week, which directly linked the two events. They called it the Saudi Arabia Accountability and Yemen Act. And what it says, if it's enacted, is that the decision to cease refueling Saudi bombers is not enough, and that the US must stop selling arms to Saudi Arabia, and that all parties who inhibit aid getting into Yemen to prevent this famine must have sanctions put on them, not just the Houthis. So there is a link there.
In your opinion, why has it taken so long to, try and bring about real lasting peace in Yemen? Because I work in the media, and every single week there is another report that comes out, whether it's from the United Nations. Just last week, we had the World Food Program that said the country was marching towards starvation. And we had the executive director of the World Food Program. He said he touched babies that felt like ghosts. Like, images are very jarring. Why has it taken so long to try and bring an end to this conflict that's lasted over 3 years now?
That's an excellent question. It has taken a very long time, and I think there are several reasons for that. One is that the famine was always looming, and now it actually seems to be happening. I think there's also an argument to be made for the fact that a lot of attention was on Syria and Iraq. And now that the so-called Islamic State is being defeated in those theatres, global attention can start to move elsewhere. But above all, I think it has taken the Khashoggi murder to focus attention on what else is Saudi Arabia doing, and Yemen is top of the list.
Elisabeth Kendall, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.